going on, everybody? We are back yet again. We are back, and Darren, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Greg. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing okay. You know,
Okay.
just put head down, pulling the plow, doing my thing.
Right on.
Um, I've been looking forward to today because this is how people who live in other states who are friends hang out.
Hmm.
So this is our chance to hang out. Um, if you remember back to last month, something I did was I came up with some questions slash topics that and to start our conversation. I thought it was fun.
I like it.
So yeah. So I decided to go with that again this month. But I wanted to start with something because one of the things I've been wanting to do and meaning to do is, our new hobby president, John Mangini,
Uh-huh.
is he did sort of a blanket question to everybody of
Hmm.
what do we need to do to make the hobby great and to improve the hobby. And so my first question to you, I thought this would be a good way for us to be able to respond to Mr. President's question. Which, let me just first say, number one, I voted multiple times for John Mangini for hobby president. I thought it was kind of fun that Sports Card Radio was doing this, and I thought the the right choice was John Mangini. So I voted multiple times for him. So I'm quite excited about this 4-year term he's about to start.
Me too. I voted for him so many times so quickly that I crashed the thing, which was cool.
Um, So, what do you think? I think that we get the point on this. Let's go back to let's see here. Could we do it like? No, let's not do that. I don't want to do that. Do I want to do this? That's not what I want. Let's just go back to this. What do you think is an issue right now, or what are the issues that could help the hobby situation? Where do you stand on some of those issues?
I think there's a couple things. One, I think that there seems to be, and I'm not really involved in it much, but I see it kind of on the outskirts of what I watch on YouTube and hear when I go to card shows. This, kind of butting of heads between modern and vintage collectors, which I don't fully understand why there would be an issue there. It's you collect what you enjoy collecting. I think that, vintage guys view buying modern cards as a waste of money, and the modern guys view vintage guys as kind of like has been focus on the new stuff. And I feel like that sort of kind of back and forth doesn't really help anything. I feel like, if you collect what you want to collect, right? If I know a lot of people say, buy what you love, and then you have other people say, well, don't buy what you love, buy what's going to go up in value. And I would say, you collect because you enjoy collecting, collect what you love. If you want it to go up in value, then don't collect cards, right?
Yeah.
Collect something else.
Right. Like
Um,
gold, like gold
like,
coins.
yeah, gold coins or silver coins, or, go to the bank and buy like a bag of quarters and use take like a magnet, and any ones that stick to the magnet, give back to the bank. All the ones that don't stick are silver. You keep those, right? Like, do something else for fun. If the goal is to have like capital appreciation, right? And to
Mhm.
me, if you collect cards, you should collect them because you enjoy collecting them, right? So I feel like this butting of heads between modern and vintage collectors, it it doesn't make sense to me. And I've seen some videos where people get like legitimately angry. And to me, that's absurd because the whole purpose of doing this is for fun, right? If you do this hobby and you collect cards and you it causes you to get upset, that doesn't even make sense, right? If you want to do something that's going to annoy you, work more, right? Like if the
Yeah.
goal is I want to make money, but I also want to do something that annoys me, work more. But if you want to do something that relaxes you, collect cards and don't fight about it, right? I think that to me is something that I'm seeing, and it hasn't impacted me directly. Like I've never had a conversation with somebody that's a modern collector where they get like aggressive about it or anything, but I've seen a lot of videos where people get upset about it both ways, and I think coming together there could help the hobby a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that being empathetic towards the hobby strategy that's different than yours is probably not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, we should be open-minded to differing opinions on everything,
Yeah, I
like in
agree.
life. Like if you're just completely close to any ideas that are different than your own, that's probably not a healthy thing. I think that discussion, debate is a positive. Um, one of the things that I watch a lot of YouTube, not as much as I'd like, but I watch a lot, and a couple of things have already come up that other people have said. My buddy Brent, of Brent Richards baseball cards, he talked about how, you know, if we have too many negative experiences with cards, that's not good for the hobby. So
Hmm.
if every time you open new boxes and new wax, you end up with 10% return, that's not good. And if every time you're breaking or you do breaks is how you do the hobby, and 1 out of 20 people hit a home run and everybody else strikes out, like that's not a good thing. And I think that's a great one. I
I do,
also think, go
I
ahead.
do like that, but I think to kind of going back to what I said before, though, that approach to me is still an investment approach, and that's the one thing I've learned about since I've been back in the hobby. If you if you view any of this as I want to do something because some outcome will increase the value of something else, this is really not the right place to do it, right? Mangini last year made a great point, right? He goes, "You want to know how to build $1 million card collection? Spend $3 million." And I agree with him, right? Like that was spot on. So I agree
Right.
with Brent. When people buy packs of cards and buy boxes of cards and you open them, and I think that has a lot to do with the big breaking channels, right? Because you know they when new people get in the hobby and they watch those channels and they watch the breaks and they see them, you know, oh, here's an Aaron Judge base card in the trash, right? Here's a Otani base card in the trash. Then people new to the hobby get the impression that that's the way to collect. That's not the way to collect. That's a way to drive views to your channel on a channel that you've monetized and you make money off of, right? Like
Hmm.
when you if you want to get into the hobby and focus on modern, you got to appreciate stuff the way I think that we did when we were younger, right? Like when I opened a pack of cards when I was a kid, I was like, oh look, Wally Joyner, right?
Yeah.
In hindsight, there was no money to be made on an 89 Wally Joyner card, but you get the card of the players you like, and and that's what's enjoyable to me. And I think that's the whole purpose of opening packs, right? Is to get cards of people that you're interested in, right? If the goal is I'm going to buy a pack of cards and cross my fingers that I get, a 101 of some kid I've never heard of who's signed the card with an X because he doesn't know how to write cursive, that's cool. And that's worth a lot of money for like 15 minutes until, he washes out. But that shouldn't be the goal of collecting, right? Because if the goal is to just do stuff to try to get more money out of it, you're not a collector. So it goes back to the original question of how do you make the hobby better? You're not part of the hobby if your only purpose is to buy cards, buy packs in order to find things that are worth more than what you paid for the packs. So you could sell them. But to me, that you're not part of the hobby. You're not a collector. You are purely somebody that's a speculator and a gambler. And that's great. I have nothing against that. I think that the guys that enjoy doing that's great. I have a lot of buddies that love going to Vegas and they come back and they're super happy. And I'm like, oh, how much did you win? They're like, I lost. I'm like, how the hell are you so happy then? But they just enjoy doing it, right?
Yeah.
So for those guys, totally awesome. Like I have nothing against that, but like I don't view that as like a piece of the hobby. I view the hobby as people who collect cards because they enjoy collecting cards. So
So
I have to kind of
I
push that
I
part to me off a little
agree.
bit.
I agree with you, but so I live just below the foothills of Gold Country, California, where the
Hmm.
gold rush happened. Like
Yep.
like where I live, there were like miners camping and stuff, like literally.
Uh,
And in through our community is a river called the Cosumnes River, and the Cosumnes River has gold in it. And so I have a bunch of gold panning equipment, and I'll go down and I'll hike down to the river, and I've got a little sluice, I've got a bunch of pans and screens and buckets and waders and all this stuff. And I go down there, and it's great exercise, and it's fun because I'll go, oh, this little bend, this little crevice of crack in this rock, or around this bend, I think is a good spot. I'm going to try to dig out some of the dirt there and pan it and see if I get anything. And I love gold panning. It's fun.
mhm.
And so I don't get a lot of gold, but it is pretty darn cool
Mhm.
when you are at the bottom of the pan and there are a bunch of colors.
Yeah.
And and I enjoy panning even when I don't find any gold, but when I find a good little chunk in there, it's pretty cool. And I kind of look at cards as that. Is it's like I like collecting cards and I like the whole process of it, from getting geared up to going to shows to investigating and researching. But it is kind of cool when you buy a card and you look back 2 years later and it's worth way more than you bought it. Just
I,
like it's cool to
yeah.
find some colors at the bottom of the pan.
100% agree. And I think we actually are saying the same thing, right? If you enjoy doing it for the sake of doing it, then I feel like you're a collector. If you obviously if you make money on it, that's great. I would say that if you go down there and you're like, I hate water, I hate waders, I hate getting wet, I hate everything about this, but I want to get gold. And then at the end of the day, you get none. And then you make a video about how much how frustrated and everything you are, then then you don't enjoy it. Right. But if you enjoy the whole process and at the end, you get something of value out of it, that's awesome. That's just it's like frosting on the cupcake. Right. Like, but I think the guys that purely do it for monetary value, they're not enjoying the process of doing it. Like nobody gets joy of chucking cards in the trash can because there's no, one of five or one of one, right? I think if you truly enjoy opening packs of cards, just like you truly enjoy panning for gold, if you enjoy the process of it, then absolutely. And then at the end of the day, you get something awesome. But I think if you enjoy the process, if you don't hit a winner, you're not going to be upset, right? You're going to say, oh, well, I enjoyed the process and I'll do it again, right? Versus if you
So
only do it to try to win, then you don't enjoy the process and you get frustrated when you don't win.
so I feel like we're kind of getting a little off topic. So back to the question from
Okay.
Mangini, what needs to be done to improve the hobby? I'll give you another example besides Brent, our buddy Dylan Double D Vintage Baseball Cards. He has said in his video about response to Mangini, he said, I just wish I could convince people that the grade that is assigned to a card shouldn't control whether or not you like the card, and stop letting the number control which cards you want. Take the card, go to the cards that you actually like. Don't put so much emphasis into the number. Like that to me is something that could be done, is we could convince people, or try to convince people, or try to get people to allow themselves to like what they like instead of the number. For example, did you ever have in high school? Did you ever have a time where like there was a girl and you're like, man, she's kind of cute, and maybe you mentioned to a couple of your buddies, you're like, I think she's kind of cute, and they're like, that girl, like the one with the crooked nose and her ears are kind of not at the same, they're kind of off, and she always wears those weird shoes, and sometimes she kind of smells funky. And then like all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I guess her nose is kind of bent and her ears are kind of weird and those shoes are kind of weird. Maybe she's not that cute after all. Like, we're letting what somebody else says affect what we actually think. And it's actually changing our opinion.
Yeah.
And whether we like it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, there is a certain level of truth to that when you send a card in for grading, when it comes back as a 3, you just don't like it as much as if it had come back a 6, and we're letting them control us. And I've gotten a lot better at that, but there's still some truth to that. And I think that's a good point from Dylan. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think we could do to improve the hobby?
So I agree with Dylan. I think that, there's a lot of things in the hobby that are driven based on, other people's opinions, right? So I agree with Dylan that 100%, right? Like some of my most recent pickups were lower grade cards that I didn't really care what the grade was or what anybody else thought for that matter. I just wanted the card and I thought it looked nice and it fit within my budget. So I bought it. And that's something that I'm trying to do better at this year. I think personally, what could be done to improve the hobby at a very high level is I think for a hobby, there's too many rules, right? There's too much structure and too many rules. It makes it less fun, right? Card grading, the grade of the card, how people do X, Y, and Z, what one card's worth compared to another, what one set's value is compared to another. I think there's too many, there's too many like unstated and stated rules and processes in place that make it less fun, right? Like I feel like anytime something's highly structured, it can't be as enjoyable if it would be if it's less structured, right? So I think if people started caring less about, what set something's from or what the grade is or how much it's worth, I think people really went back to, I'm just buying the cards I like because I enjoy the cards. The grade I'm getting is a grade that I like the eye appeal of, right? Or that I could afford or whatever. I think if people focus more on, I think really, if the focus is to get joy out of the hobby, you'll improve the hobby. If people get into the hobby and they say, okay, I'm new to collecting, I've watched all these channels, I think it's very important that my cards are all PSA or all SGC. I can't get any of the Beckett ones because, they're shrinking. The value of the PSAs are higher than the SGCs. And, authentics are no good because there's something like fundamentally wrong with them. And, ones I don't like. So I need to buy at least like a 2, 3 or higher in vintage. And when people start getting into it and they start putting all these rules around it and taking everyone else's opinions and kind of forming rigid rules for their collecting based on that, it makes it less desirable. I think that if
but aren't rules aren't our own rules for our own collection just giving us structure and focus? I didn't have any rules for my collection, then I would be pulled in 8,000 directions at the same time. But if I say, well, I'm not going to do this or this or this or this or this, I'm going to focus on this and that.
100% agree. And when you set your own rules, that's fine. My point was when you create rules based on what everyone else is telling you, that's when it's too structured, right? Like if I come in and say for 2025, I want to focus on 2 specific players and collect as many cards as I can from them, starting with, some mid-price ones, maybe pick up one high-priced and then get a couple of the lower-priced ones. That's my plan. Then I put rules in place to help guide what I'm buying, right? But if I say, Mike Baseball Collectors, I watch his videos, I have to buy PSA cards, right? Or, I watch your channel and I'm new to collecting, and I say, Greg primarily picks up SGC cards, so I should buy SGC cards, right? I think when people set the rules based on what they've heard other people do, it makes it less fun because suddenly they're putting up guardrails that they don't need to put up, I guess is kind of my point with that. So if you create your own guardrails based on what you enjoy, that's totally fine. It helps drive your direction. If you set up guardrails based on what you're hearing other people say, then, you might say, oh, I kind of like rookie cards, but John 3D80's kid said, don't buy rookie cards. Okay. Right. Or you say, I don't know if I like rookie cards, but I watch Victor's channel, so I should buy rookie cards, right? I think that people should watch channels to see ideas of what's out there, learn new things about the cards themselves, and let all of the structure and politics of how things should work, don't worry about that. I think that if people stop focusing as much on that stuff, that it'll be a more enjoyable hobby and you'll get more people to do it.
So does it just circle back to what our buddy Chris from Missouri always says, which is it's just a hobby, collect what you like?
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
That's what he says at the end of every episode.
He is a wise man.
That's what age does for people, I think, is they gain wisdom.
Yes.
Now I've got a couple of ideas. I was listening today. So we're recording this on a Thursday, and I was listening to John Mangini had a Misfits live stream last night, and I was listening to it on the way to work, and I was listening to it on the way home from work. And as they were talking about this kind of, what should we do to, make things better, or what should we try to convince people of, I was having this fireworks of ideas as I was driving, and I'm at the age like you where if we don't write it down right away, it leaves as quickly as it came in.
Oh yeah.
And it's sort of like spicy food. And so what happened what happened was I had a few ideas, and I wanted to run a couple of them by you. Now, let me also back up and say, if you're out there and you're still listening to us, I had originally come to the table today with 4 topics with Darren. And I feel like we're not even halfway through the first one. So the other 3 topics are, we'll see how far into this we get. But and maybe I can bring them up with our guest and you that when we record that next week.
Okay.
So that might be fun. But so one of my ideas is this. I really think the National needs to be longer. And I think the National needs to be longer for a couple of reasons. Number one, it being such a short period of time, it's making it difficult to find a facility and lodging and everything. Now, part of what makes the show fun is that everybody's at the same place at the same time. But if we could extend it a little bit, if we could make it, instead of Wednesday to Sunday, we could make it Wednesday wrap around to Friday, make it 9 days, I think. And then what you have is some of the dealers are there the whole time, and some of the dealers are there for a block of time. And maybe there's a break day in between there where some of them load out and other ones load in. And what it would do, I think, is it would allow there to be sort of people could coordinate with their friends on which days they're going to be there, right? And then what it could also do is it could have some themes, like maybe the first 3 days are the big vintage days, because the guys who have the table preferences are the guys that have been around forever, which are mostly the vintage guys. So early in the show, maybe it's heavy in vintage, and then those guys that have been around forever are just there for 4 days, and then they move out, and then some of the newer guys come in, which are more of the modern guys. And I wouldn't want to do it where it's the first 4 days are vintage and the last 5 days are modern, because I want the modern collectors to see the vintage. I want them to have to walk by it. I don't want one room to be vintage and one room to be modern. I want those younger kids to have to walk by the tobacco cards and the pre-war cards and the golden age cards, because it might be our only chance to introduce it to them. So, but I also think, so I like how it's sprinkled together. I think that's good for the future of the hobby,
I
personally.
agree.
And but if we extended it, it seems like it would be less overwhelming, and it would allow for. I just think it provides some opportunity. What do you think about that? And it's okay to tell me I'm stupid.
No, I think in theory it's an interesting concept. I personally wouldn't go more than the 3 or 4 days that I already go, because
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either.
yeah, I was gonna say I I have a certain amount of vacation time. Well, not exactly, but I don't like taking a lot of time away from the family when I go to do stuff. And I go to Strongsville and I go to the National, and I think, the family is cool with that. If I were to say, hey, the National's now a week or 9 days long, I would definitely get the look. So, and I don't even really want to go to it for that long.
Let me clarify. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that many people, if anyone, would go for the whole 9 days.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that maybe I coordinate with 2 or 3 of my closest pals that we're going to be going, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And so that's when we go. So we wouldn't necessarily, I don't think anyone would go for the whole time, it would be more just spreading out the influx of people, because the hotels can get booked and the restaurants can get cramped and everything, it's a little much. So why, and I mentioned this on a different channel one time I was talking, but it's like, in the winter, Disneyland closes at 8.
Mm-hmm.
But in the summer, when more people are there, Disneyland closes at midnight. And the reason they do that is because there are going to be more people, so they need to extend it out. So if we're getting to the point where there's not a facility that can really hold us, why not make it longer? Why does it have to be the same number of days just because it's been the same number of days for the last 25 years?
So that makes sense. I think my take would be they keep going to the same venues, right? And it's going to be at the convention center in Rosemont, or it's the XI Center in Cleveland, or whatever awesomely dumpy casino it is in Atlantic City. Hopefully that doesn't happen again for a long time. But they keep going to the same venues. But the problem is the event is growing, right? So I think personally, rather than extend it out over a longer period of time, because I think that would have logistical issues. I think that you wouldn't get the right. I think you'd actually have less vendors decide to go, because it's a bigger commitment. Or, they might say, well, I don't want to, if I don't get all the people in there for the days I'm there, I don't want to pay the money for the table. I think what might work better is they say, okay, we're going to do it at a downtown convention center in the big city, right? So it's like, okay, instead of doing it at the convention center in Rosemont, they do it at the downtown convention center in downtown Chicago, which is like 3 times, 4 times bigger. And you have, 100 hotels within walking distance of it, right? And you have hundreds of restaurants within walking distance of it, right? So I think if they were to keep it the same duration, you would keep the same good vendors going to it, but you'd have it in a larger facility near more hotels and more restaurants, which would make it better. I think that 20 years ago, they went to the same venues they're going to now, but the hobby's 5 times bigger than it was then. So I think that to me is what the problem is, right? Like, I don't like Rosemont or the location in Cleveland. I don't like either one of those locations, because they're not near, like you said, they're not near a lot of stuff, right? There's like 5 hotels, 6 hotels nearby, and there's some restaurants. Rosemont's, I think Cleveland was a little better because you're actually like in town, where Rosemont's like this little island of, convention center stuff, and then nothing else really around it. So I
Yeah.
think personally, if they wanted to grow it and make it better and make it more attractive to people, they should do it at a larger convention center and in a city, right? I think
Okay.
imagine if 90% of the people could just walk to it versus like in Cleveland, 100% of people had to drive to it. Problems
Okay.
with traffic, right? Problems finding a hotel. If you're in downtown Chicago, right? Or you could, I'm just thinking Midwest cities, like you could Chicago, you could do Detroit, you could do even like Minneapolis. Downtown Cleveland is not as big as those. Even like, Cincinnati or something, right? Like if you kept it in the Midwest, wanted to keep it in the Midwest because it's kind of in the center of the country, you just do it downtown in a big city and you have more restaurants, more hotels, a bigger facility. It's more efficient. Obviously, it'll cost,
Indianapolis could probably handle it.
or Indy too. Yeah,
Oh,
it costs more money for the promoters to
yeah.
rent those places out. But,
Yeah.
for me, customer experience is a big thing. And I would say the experience of the show itself, access and Wi-Fi and, you know, things to do around Cleveland sucked for that. I mean, the
I think I think as much fun as I had in Cleveland, I think I've scratched the itch of a Cleveland National for me,
yeah,
and it's satisfied. Okay, let me go to one of my other ones since you hate that one. So another one that I think that we need is, why is there still not a combined registry? Now, let me stop because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the point of a registry is to rank people's collections and they're all ranked based on the numbers. I think that's part of why there's a registry. I think part of the registry is it's a very centralized place for people to share their collection.
mhm,
Like a lot of people say, this is my collection name. You can check it out on the registry. Any computer, you can pull it up and you can show people your collection digitally. I think it's so much more than just ranking collections.
yeah,
It's
I
it's
agree.
just a shared space. And I don't understand. I understand why PSA wouldn't want a joint registry. I understand why collectors who bought SGC would have potentially blocked an SGC registry. I don't understand. There are a lot of smart people, a lot of people know SQL programming. It wouldn't be that difficult for a couple of programmers to put this together. I mean, if I went to, like when I was in college, we had a bunch of local businesses come to our college and pitch uh, a business plan idea to us, and each student group picked what they wanted their senior project to be. I mean, there are a lot of MIT kids that could just blow through and put something like this together super quick and
Yeah,
super easy, and it's not as complicated as people think that it is. Now, I'm not saying it's easy for me, but
yeah,
it's easy for certain people, and I just don't know why somebody hasn't just made that happen. Because I mean, heck, Ryan Nolan is a whiz at data and data management and data, all, organization. Like, it just seems, why hasn't this happened?
yeah.
Do you
So
think we need that?
yeah, I think that'd be great. I mean, if somebody could put together a registry that's not I mean, why does PSA or why do the grading companies have to be the ones to do it, right? Why can't somebody else build a registry and have the cards, right? I think if the goal of the PSA registry is to, and that's the thing, right? I would guess that a majority of people that do the PSA registry are more like, hey, this is where I track my collection. You could go see what I've got. And I think there's a smaller percentage that's like, hey, I care about my score and my rank on it. Because if you look at some of the collections that are there, there's collections that, I mean, I don't know a lot of people that could touch them. I was just looking at a Ty Cobb one the other day, and there was a guy that was at like, you know, 28% completion. And I clicked on it, and it's like all these insanely rare Cobbs he has in like sevens and eights. I'm like, cool. Like, who's going to have get 100% of this collection with an average score of like a 6? It's, tens of millions of dollars potentially, right? So I think, if the goal is just to say, hey, here's a registry, just so you can see, hey, I'm tracking for this, check this out. I think that somebody could create a registry that's not tied to the grading companies and do that. And they could say, put the grade. Who cares about the grading company, right?
And here's the other piece of it. It's like, when people you and I both have a few friends that have gotten pretty hot and heavy with the PSA registry.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it drives a lot of buying, and it drives a lot of interest in the hobby. And it does, I do believe it helps grow the hobby. Mm-hmm. A registry does. I mean, if I'm Fanatics and I've got all this money, I've got all these programmers, I've got all these web designers. I mean, the thing about Fanatics has made them good is how easy, how they have access to everybody, mm-hmm. and how easy it is to get on their site, buy what you want, find what you want, get it to your house. And why wouldn't they do it? Say, okay, grading companies, we're going to drive all the traffic to us because we've got a joint registry. I don't know. It just seems like we need a registry, and it's not just a registry again for ranking. For this is the number, this is my average. Yeah. There are some people that will be into that, but I want a place where if I'm on, if I'm Mike Petty, and me and you, and we go out to dinner with a guy who's not a collector, and the four of us are sitting there, and we're talking about our collections. We're like, here, let me show you. What do you want to see? You want to see my, and I mean, we could all pull up a photo app, or some sort of app where we have them stored in our phones. But why aren't we storing them in the cloud on some server where it's designed for this? Like, I don't get why that hasn't happened.
I think that's a great idea. I think that registries tied to the grading companies are great for people that collect cards from that grading company, but
yes.
there's too many other. What about people that don't collect graded cards, right? Where somebody's like, hey, I've got a 1933 Gaudi Ruth green background ungraded.
Yeah,
that's a freaking awesome card.
Yeah.
Why would that person not have the ability to share that because it's not graded by somebody, right? So I agree. I think that having a registry where somebody can say, hey, create a profile and put your cards in it, and you could click on anyone else's profile and see what cards they have.
And I know there are people out there that are just throwing their phone into the wall saying, Greg, there are so many Google photos and all these things. No, I want something specific for cards.
Nothing centralized, right?
I can click on the drop down that says my SGC cards and just show those. The drop down of just my Ty Cobb cards, and it just shows those that collectors are going to and using as a commonplace. Some of us have it in Card Ladder, and some of us have it in Market Movers, and some of us have it in a photo app. Like, we need a standardized thing where I can I can hit the little share thing on my stupid phone and share my collection so you can see all of my cards.
100%
agree. Should be done.
I agree. And all the other apps you mentioned, right? Two things with those. One,
why aren't these companies hiring us?
They don't.
Because I am available. I am willing to move on from what I'm doing. I mean, I don't know.
Is there anyone out there that's we need a database guru. We need
a really good SQL programmer, like a
graphical interface.
Yeah.
Guru.
A web person.
Yeah, and then
we need someone with a lot of money.
Your card advisor to build this thing.
Advisor, PR, marketing, and
yes,
just fun guy.
Yes. So for those of you that have that can do this, call Greg. So
yeah,
I think my issue. You mentioned some of the other sites that you track cards on. I have two issues with that. One, they're primarily, I think, designed more for us to track our own collection and track what we paid and what the value goes up. And people don't want to share all that stuff, right? There's too much information to share. The other thing is, a lot of them, you don't put a photo of your card. Like when I go into Card Ladder, or no, so not Card Ladder, when I go into VCP and look at the cards in my collection, it just shows like an image of that card. It doesn't show my card, right? So, and that doesn't solve the problem that you're talking about, right? So I think that using those for that doesn't work. And if I have a bunch of cards that aren't PSA, I can't use their registry. So we need a general registry where people literally just say, here are all the cards in my collection. Here's a photograph of them. And then you could add some additional, metadata to it around maybe like who graded it, what the grade is. Yeah. And then that way you have, it's easier for searchability. But then you have this database where people can share stuff.
You can enter it into rankings, or you could not. You could just have it as a collection. You could have it as a registry under certain sets. And then, I mean, I know a lot of people have their stuff on Instagram, and a lot of people have their stuff on Facebook, and a lot of people have it organized. It's in so many different places.
Yes,
we need, and some people say, oh, just do a Facebook group. No, it needs to be specific for the intricacies of collecting cards. And
you shouldn't have to. And it's you shouldn't have to join you don't need to have to join a social media platform and search around. It should just be, you sign up for the registry because you enjoy collecting. You put your list of cards, the photographs of all the cards, and that's it. You don't put pricing in it. You don't put.
If you want. Maybe some people do that,
or maybe some people might want to, because it'll be like, hey, look how much look how valuable my collection is.
You can have in your collection check boxes of share this, don't share this, share this one. I mean, this is at least a $500 idea, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, hey, for people watching this, if anybody knows how to do computer stuff, let us know.
Yeah. And don't Winklevoss me. Don't take it and run with it and create the Facebook and then not include me. So, and then, okay, so you hated my first idea. Sounds like you're okay with my second idea.
Love it.
My third idea, or my third thought on what we need to do, because again, back to our original question, which was what needs to be done to improve the hobby, right? Mm-hmm. The third thing that I would say is, and you tell me what you think about this. I feel like there are a lot of people that do cards, that do the hobby of cards and card collecting, that are 100% about the cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that there are a lot of people who it's the whole thing, and the cards are a part of the thing. And a lot of the people who are about the whole thing and not just about the cards, a lot of those people are some of the people that have gotten into the YouTube world with cards, because it's sort of just like a club about cards that anybody can participate in.
Correct. Yeah.
I really think the people out there that are just about the cards, I feel like they're missing out. It's like when you're a 49er fan and nobody knows that you're a 49er fan, and you go home and you watch every game and you read all the articles and you listen to the radio about it, but nobody else on earth knows that you're a Niner fan. That can be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as soon as you realize that being a part of the 49er nation, and being a part of the 49er, like, faithful, they call it out here. They call it the faithful is the 49er people. And you're high-fiving people and you're at work and you're like, did you see the game? Did you see that catch? Did you see our wide receiver choke out our long snapper? Whatever it is that happened, you're part of like something bigger. You got your flag out on Sundays, you're wearing your sweatshirts. It's way more fun. And one thing I would do to help improve the hobby is I would I would really try to convince people, and it's kind of what the goal of my channel have tried to do is don't do this alone. Don't be a silent participant.
Mhm.
Be participate in the camaraderie. There are a lot of people I've heard say, I'm not going to the national. When you factor in the cost of travel and hotel and admission to the national, like, man, like it's cheaper, just buy cards from home. And you know what? If it's just about the cards, you're right. You are
Mhm.
absolutely right. You don't come out ahead. You do not get as much card uh, additions to your hobby and your collection if you do it that way. But like, dude, when you and I hang out, I mean, and we've got our little circle, our little group. When we hang out, like, dude, that's like its own thing. It's
Right.
like that is a ton of fun.
Mhm.
And then there's the cards too. And those things can overlap.
I
So
agree.
so that would be the third thing I would do is I'd convince those of people that are just about the cards to be open to being a participant in the community, because I'm at a point now where I think I get more enjoyment from my texting with all of you guys and hanging out at the national, or talking on the phone or doing this. Like, that's as much fun as the actual cards are for me now.
Mhm.
And people are missing out on that.
And I agree. I think that at a minimum, people that are in the hobby that are kind of like super introverted collectors, try something new, right? Like go to a card show, right? Go to a local card show. Talk to dealers. If people are saying, "Hey, I have my collection, I really enjoy it. I don't know how to do that," comment on this video, and we'll talk. We could have you potentially on as a guest or something, right? Like I agree. I think just getting more involved is fun, right? I mean, I used to make a lot more videos than I do now because I have other stuff going on. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the hobby as much as I used to. I just, I'm busy now, and I get that people are busy, and people are like, I don't know if I have time for it. You don't have to make YouTube videos to be a part of the hobby, right? It's just, being more involved in the hobby is fun, right? That you not
Yeah.
only get to talk to people about something you're interested in, you also get to, find out about, you know, card deals that are coming up, right? You might say, "Hey, I'm looking for this card." And if you're not part of the community, you can't say, "Oh, this guy that we know has that card and he wants to sell it," right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's just you have a lot more resources, you have a lot more people to discuss it with, and
Well,
it's enjoyable. So I think if you're watching this and you're in the hobby but you've never really participated in much other than purchasing cards, try something new for 2025, right? At a minimum, go to a local card show. Then at least you get out there and you could chat with other, even if you don't want to talk to other people shopping, talk to dealers.
yeah. When I just to follow up on what you just said, our buddy Brent, he texted me a picture of a card the other day. He goes, "Man, I've been wanting this card for a long time. This one's centered. It's really nice." And I was like, "Oh, send me a picture." She sends me a picture. I'm like, "Oh, dude, Garrett's selling that. I
Right.
I know Garrett." So I text Garrett. Garrett, I got a friend who's interested in this card. If you sell it off eBay, cut him a deal. He's my buddy. Take care of him. Exchanged them their numbers. They ended up doing a deal. They both came out ahead by doing it that way. I mean, it's not as big of a community as you think.
Yeah, no, totally. Like when I did my 1,000 subscriber VR, I said, talk about some goal cards you have. Hype Pop Professor showed 2 goal cards. From that video, people reached out to him and said, I've got 2 different people. I have that card. He literally bought 2 goal cards he's had for, I think, quite a while. He bought both of them like within like a week because people watched the
That's
video and were like,
crazy.
hey, that's what you're looking for. I've got it for sale, right?
That's
It's
crazy.
yeah,
Uh,
it's by being more involved in the community. I think there's no, and that's the thing, like everything else. you can create or find negatives, but I think if you want to get more involved, stay positive with it, there's a lot of benefits to it. I mean, personally, I've made a bunch of friends in the community, and I've got text strings with them. And Greg and I are on a text string where we've got a couple buddies on it. And, I look at the text string and it's like, boom, check out this pickup. And you're like, world class, right?
Yeah, like world class.
Yeah. And then like
cards.
the next day, a different guy pops in.
It's
Well,
insane.
I got this. And you're like, okay, more world class, right? Like if we weren't involved in the community, we'd be like, yeah, I've seen a picture of this card on a website and, that's kind of cool. But now it's like, hey, we know people that have them. You could ask to see them, right? Like, you could talk to people. How'd you find this card? Why do you like that card? I think, and me personally, like, I think that's the fun part of the hobby, is seeing people get cards that they're passionate about, their reactions to it, hearing the stories about why they enjoy it. And if you're not super involved in the hobby and you're just collecting, then that's tougher. I mean, I did that for a while before I started when I got back into collecting, before I started doing videos on YouTube. I don't think I even commented on people's video. I used to watch videos, but I wouldn't even comment on them. And then I created my channel, and I really enjoy the hobby a lot more since I did that than I did before, because I'm able to share it with people. They're able to share with me. We're able to have these conversations. So I think anyone that enjoys collecting should try to become more involved in the community.
And it doesn't mean you have to start a channel.
Right,
it
exactly.
Just get involved.
If you go to the National and you watch if you watch videos and you don't, even if you don't ever comment, if you go to the National, go to the YouTube event and start talking to us. There's a lot of people that attended this YouTube event in Cleveland that don't make content, but they came to it because they watch our videos. And I think a lot of them had a really good time. And I think there's some guys that, based on those conversations, have created channels. And because they did, you're able to see stuff like video 1, my Joe Jackson collection, video 2, my Ty Cobb collection, video 3, my Babe Ruth collection, right? Like, because of that, because of the conversations these people have had and introducing themselves and all that, they're now able to share that stuff. And now you've got, hundreds or thousands of people that get to enjoy seeing that never would have beforehand. So I think try to get involved. And if you really don't want to, that's fine too. But it's more fun when you are part of the community.
All right. Well, you liked 2 of my 3 ideas, so I'll take it. That's a 66%.
Yeah. That's, if you batted that, you would be a Hall of Famer. You'd be better than Shohei Ohtani if you batted 666.
Oh, wow. Better than Shohei?
I know.
So the other part of what Mangini asked, because again, I had 4 topics. The other 3 we'll do on our video that we're going to record soon with a guest. The other thing that Mangini asked us to do is he asked us to shout out a channel. Now, I know a lot of people like shouting out smaller channels that are getting started. Some people like shouting out big channels. No restrictions. What's a channel that you want to just throw a little love to and share, and why?
Can I do 2?
I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Hold on, let me call the president. Is that okay, President?
Right.
He says yes. Go ahead.
So I'm going to pick 2 channels that are newer. One is still pretty small. One is growing fairly well. I just really enjoy their content and their newer channels. And like we were just talking about, I appreciate the fact that both of these guys have become part of the community, right? So one is the Southern Collector.
Okay. Southern Collector 14.
Southern Collector 14.
The name of the channel. Yeah.
Amazing collection. Super knowledgeable. Super nice guy.
Now, just for what it's worth, let me throw this in there real quick. By the time this airs, my hour-long conversation with him will have already aired. But as at the time of recording on Wednesday, on what is it, Thursday? It's actually tomorrow. My video with him is coming out. So It's pretty entertaining. I think it's pretty good. So
Well,
okay,
that's
so
so
first one.
see, you like him too, right?
Oh,
So
he's great. He's fantastic. Fantastic guy.
yes,
Amazing collection. Very likable. So Southern
yeah.
Collector 14, and who's your other one?
West 238th.
Okay. And believe it or not, tell us about West 238th, and then we'll do a spoiler for our next episode.
So West 238th is a really new channel. I think he made his first video to do the Pepino Man, the last Pepino Man BR. I'm happy that he's doing videos now. And he has a super cool collection. He has it's very diverse. He has a lot of, I mean, he has a lot of like big golden age cards in his collection, but he also has a lot of kind of real interesting stuff, right? He likes to focus on, Venezuelan issue cards. He likes to focus on all kinds of different, just really cool stuff. And he has like 35, 40-ish subscribers right now. And
That's it?
yeah,
Really? Well,
yeah.
we'll change,
So
we'll change that.
we will, because
And
he's going to be our special guest on when we bring our guest on. We're going to record that one next week.
so next week we're going to be recording our November off topic with a guest, and it will be West 248. Yeah,
238th.
238. That's what I said. And
Yes.
then it's also like in Goodman or something. I can't
Yeah,
keep.
West 238th and Goodman.
Okay, 238th and Goodman. I've seen a lot of his videos. I find them enjoyable.
Me too. I think I like his production value with his videos,
Yeah.
and I really enjoy his collection, and I like to hear about why he collects what he collects.
All right, so let me shout out my two. Now, number one is the YouTube card community's best impersonator. My buddy Brent Richards and Baseball Cards is the name of his channel. Great guy. It sort of like we were saying earlier, being open-minded to cards beyond and things beyond just what we currently collect. He collects a lot of stuff that I didn't even know existed. And a lot of his channel is showing a lot of the stuff that I didn't know existed. But then he also shows stuff that I did know existed. And a lot of it is nostalgia because he's about our age. It's a lot of stuff from our youth. He recently did a video on the 90 Leaf set, which afterwards, I was immediately looking on eBay at a bunch of 90 Leaf cards that I'm like, yeah, I need that card in my collection. Great guy. So Brent Richards and Baseball Cards. The other one, is a bigger channel. I don't know what people's definition of big or small or whatever is, but just like one of the most likable guys ever. He acts like he doesn't like, he acts like he's making fun of people all the time, but that's his love language. And just an absolutely fantastic guy is Chris from Missouri.
Yes.
I love Chris. And the thing I love about Chris is his love of cards is like legitimately infectious.
Mm-hmm.
And I love he's like the best guest ever. I mean, remember growing up, Hollywood Squares, and remember how every episode there was always Jim J. Bullock was one of the Hollywood Squares, and it was just like he's just always chiming in with good stuff, funny. Joan Rivers was always on there, and they were just like these old reliables, entertaining, good-natured, good additions. He's just like the best guest on any panel. And so
yeah, he's fantastic. It's Strongsville last year when we went to dinner the third night. I sat with him at one
shoulder
of the tables.
to shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say that dinner conversation that the three of us had, it was probably one of the most enjoyable dinner conversations I've ever had. And that part of my job is to have dinner with people all the time, and so that the fact that conversation was just great.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, I had fun. We're about at our hour mark, so we got through, of my 4 topics, we got through one of them. So I consider that a great success for us.
That was solid.
All right, guys. If you're still listening, we appreciate you. We do appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later.